It was a day just like any other day. It was a day in 2013 as I sat at my desk at work and peeked into an issue of the North Carolina SeaGrant Coastwatch magazine. Fish Trackers was the name of the game, and the Mummichog was our Vic, being cut open for the insertion of a fish tracker. What? I think further research is needed on this case. Fish tracking has been happening for a long time now. Historically, fishermen have been reading the beach for over a century. Ward, in a 2008 issue of Coastwatch, pointed out that in addition to finding features that promote aggregation, fishermen could watch for slicks at the surface of the water or even diving birds to find a shoal. Knowing that the fish migrate with food or temperature or even for spawning sites is yet another way to find them in the water. The most interesting thing that Ward shared in that magazine is that in the Middle East, they don't just watch diving birds to know where the shoals are, but actually, historically, they've trained cormorants to drive fish into fishing gear. The military began development of sonar during the war to find submarines. Sonar basically mimics the echolocation of dolphins. Fishermen and conservationists alike have been able to track fish movements with that tech. Development of fish trackers doesn't stop there. The Arizona Game and Fish Department separates trackers into 3 categories: biological, chemical, and physical. Biological markers include the observation of morphological traits, parasitic marks, and genetic marks. Morphological marks and parasitic marks are not free of error, especially over time as the marks are subject to change, and genetic marking is very costly. Chemical markings consist of using chemicals such as alizarin, oxytetracycline, or calcine to change the color of a fish. This can be done by feeding them the dyes, injecting the dyes, or immersion in the dye. Disadvantages are decreased coloring over time and varying mortality rates. However, the benefit is that this process is cheap and can be done on a large scale in hatcheries and fisheries. Physical tags are perhaps the oldest form of tagging, beginning with branding or alterations such as trimming a fin. These days, internal or external physical tags with a wide variety of tech can be used, and there is of course just as wide a variety of pros and cons for each tag, which brings us back to the Mummichog. In this 2013 study in Coastwatch magazine, researcher Paul Rikardsen was using Mummichog population movements and demographics as a stream health indicator. For this study, they used radio frequency tags called passive integrated transponders, or PIT tags. These are the same tags that they use in microchips on cats and dogs. PVC pipe gateways were constructed on 3 different locations in the stream. These held the antenna scanners, which were picking up the tracking device, the PIT tag. As a fish swam through, the PIT tag would register with the antenna and data was collected. This data could be used to determine where the fish are going and when. The fish were of course anesthetized during the procedure and released shortly after waking up, and Rikardsen claims that not a single fish has died from this procedure. PIT tags, like all radio transponders, can be registered in a variety of means. That is because radio waves pass both through air and water, unlike acoustic waves found in acoustic trackers or sonar, which can only be read via hydrophone under the water. Hydrophones can be lowered from boats attached to buoys or from devices on the shoreline. However, radio trackers can be read via antenna by an individual on foot, car, boat, a stationary receiver on the shoreline, or even a passing aircraft. The Pacific Northwest National Laboratory announced in January of 2015 the development of their first injectable acoustic transmitter. They claim that heavier transmitters will slow down fish and cause them not to behave naturally, but the injectable transmitter, the size of only 2 grains of rice, can cause fish to behave more naturally, causing the study to be more scientifically sound. Not all trackers send data like the radio transponders. According to Thorstad et al. In the Turkish Journal of Fisheries and Aquatic Science, more complex data can be stored in data storage tags, or DST, which are connected to the fish via a float. When the fish dies, the float is released, goes to the surface, and eventually finds its way to shore. Once found on shore, there is a return address to which the float can be mailed and data can be retrieved. This is not dissimilar from the pop-up satellite archival tags, or PSATs. The only difference is that the fish does not have to die for the PSAT to be released. The pop-up satellite archival tag is connected by a clasp, which will become corroded over time by salt water. The clasp then breaks, the float releases to the surface, and data is collected via satellite. Domeier et al. Put PSATs to the test in a 2005 study where they used the data collected, such as time and light, to determine the latitude of the fish that were being tracked. Though we have come a long way from branding or slapping on a Peterson disc for a capture-recapture study, the math is still there. New algorithms are being developed all the time to better interpret data. Overveiw tested a new algorithm for a 4D echo device using a split-beam sonar tracker to track salmon in Canadian rivers. The new check proved faithful since there was no significant difference in the fish data from the new algorithm and trusted techniques. With the development of technology, it seems that the cons in fish tracking are going down as the pros in fish tracking are going up. My verdict in this case is that whatever experiment you're working on, you will find a fish tracker for you. Case closed.